I think we can start. Yeah.
All right. I'll start slowly so that people that will come like in the middle will not be too lost. And yeah, I'm gonna try to make have a break in the middle this time, right? To have us like take a small break. All right, cool. So let me prepare a little bit here. Here we go. We have our beautiful slides. And let's go for it. Cool. So very happy to have you again today for this second workshop from me, which is the API sprints. So really like telling you what are APIs, how do they work, where you can find API on the internet, and like how you could use them in your work, in your like everyday life as well. There's a lot of things, really an infinite amount of things that you can do with APIs. So before we jump in the actual workshop, again, if you come back to the link that I've sent you with the resource that we are providing you from the Wagon for this workshop. So we have a new page on Learn. If you were on the web development sprint page, you can jump into the API sprint with this button in there, where you have like everything about the workshop that we're going to see today. So again, the slide that I'm going to share with you, this your turn part, which you will want to use in order to try yourself on the API word. So like you'll see that every exercise that is related here is basically linked to what I'm going to talk about today. The takeaways, which are the most important concepts of this workshop, and a thank you area as well, if you want to know more about the Wagon. So before jumping into this U-turn page, U-turn area, let me tell you about what are APIs and why we're using them on the internet. So before we start with the slides, actually, so that's what we talked about, right? API created and APIs created an ecosystem. We're going to talk about webhook. We're going to prototype. We're going to build our own API as well at the end of this workshop. But really, before we go really into depth into the slides, I would like to make you feel a little bit why, like what are APIs and why they are needed on the internet. So again, I'm going to like go back to the basics, go back to the internet, and like talk to you about like what the internet is and why we're using internet, because it's really about that. So what you need to know is that most of the internet that we are experiencing is actually done for human beings. It's computer things, right? It's websites that are on computers that are directed for human to enjoy. So these are human-computer interactions, interactions between computers, the websites, and us humans. A good example is, for example, this GitHub account page here, right? So you see that this page is definitely done for human beings to enjoy, right? There is this like handsome man picture here on the left side, right? Like, you know, human beings love pictures. That's their thing. Human beings also love emojis, so a lot of emojis everywhere. The title is bigger for the human being to understand that this is a title. The links are blue so that the human being can actually understand that they are clickable, and so on and so forth. You have a lot of icons everywhere. That's another thing that human beings really love, icons. That's their thing, absolutely. Cards and so on and so forth, beautiful graphics, thing that human beings really love. So really this page, I think you got it now, is focused on humans. It's a page for human beings to enjoy. Now, the internet is not just enjoyed like by humans. There are not just human beings on the internet that are trying to get some data out of the internet, right? There are also computers, and more specifically, other websites that are very interested in the data that there is on website of the internet. Typically, see here on my page, I have my name, I have my email, the amount of followers, and like a bunch of contribution I'm doing every year to like basically like the code that I'm like writing every year in there. All the information here is actually processed by this website, commits.top/japan.html, where these people basically on this website are ranking all the users of GitHub, checking how many commits they did. So you see that my 600 commits are like really nothing compared to the 9,000 that this person has here. And they're building this website to rank a little bit every person that is using GitHub. This is in Japan. So what they could do is build their websites so obviously all this data here is not coming from commits.top.japan, right? This data is coming directly from GitHub, from the GitHub website. So at some point, commits.top, this website here, is going into GitHub, getting the data out of GitHub, like my contribution per year, for example, and they are using it in order to show them on their website in there, right? So what they could definitely do is to go into my github.com/Yann Klein URL here, pick this number here, and like use it to display it in their website. Now, the thing is that this process is not done by a human being. You don't have a employee of commits.top that is going to my profile, checking that I'm in Tokyo, Japan, so I'm in Japan, and like checking how many contribution I have. No, obviously, no human would want to do that for 91,657 users, right? So this process is done by a computer. It's basically done by their website in there. So the website somehow goes to GitHub, gets this number here, gets the name of each user, and like summarize it into their dashboard that we can see in there. Now, if this website was actually looking at this page that we have in front of you, this website would have a lot of headache, because this is very easy to read for human beings again, but computer, when they see the page that we have in front of us, are seeing that. Remember the inspect? This is the code of the page. It's the HTML code of this page in there. And all the data that the computer can see on this page is not the one that is displayed on Chrome, but really the one that is inside this insanely complicated code. Imagine that the computer wants to see my name. It will have to dig into the HTML up to this area here. And I can tell you, look at that, it's digging inside, right? Div, H1 span to get my name. If the computer wants to get my contributions, it will have again to dig inside this HTML up to here and get the first 3 numbers, or maybe 4 numbers, or maybe, I don't know, I have no idea, like to make some logic to get only the number of contribution in there. So I think you got it. You got the idea. It's very, very complicated for computers and for websites to actually read web pages that are built and done for human beings to enjoy. For this reason, on the internet, you have pages just like this one that are done for human beings, and you have their equivalents, the exact same page like that one, that are done for computers. This page that you have in front of you is the exact equivalent of my profile page, but done for a computer. I can prove you that by clicking on the link of this avatar URL here. Zoom a bit on it. If I click on this avatar URL and I open it, see that this is my picture, the same picture that you've seen in there. It is the same web page, but one is done for human beings. The other one is done for computer. I have my login here for human being to enjoy. I have my login there for computer to figure out to get the data as quick as possible. My name is here, right? My blog is here, and so on and so forth. Right? For computer, this format that we have in front of us is very, very easy to read, really. If you have some like JavaScript or other like Ruby language experience, you know that like going into this data is just basically searching for the right key. You want the name, go for the key name, and very easily you will be able to get the value corresponding to this key inside this object here. We call it an object in JavaScript, a hash in Ruby, dictionary in Python if you're a bit into Python as well. All right, so long story short, on the internet, there are some pages, there are some websites, just like this api.github.com, websites that are done not for human beings to enjoy, but for computers to enjoy, not for human beings to get data out of them, but for computers to get data out of them, so that these computers, this website can crush this data and use it inside their own websites to show the data in another way, to play with the data, to do something interesting out of this data. And these websites that are directed to computers are what we call APIs. And here, this page, this web page that you have in front of you is one of the many, we call them endpoints. So web pages, but for computer endpoints of the API, the GitHub API, the API of GitHub, basically. Right? So this is the big idea about APIs. By the way, you all know that for human beings, the pages, the web pages that we show to human on the internet for them to enjoy are HTML pages. And we've been building HTML pages together. For computers, we are not showing HTML pages. What you have in front of you here is a very, very specific and very very well-known format for APIs, which is which one? Do you have an idea? Check the chat as well if you have some answers in the chat. JSON, you're absolutely right. In front of you here, you have a JSON file. A JSON file is a piece of text, and I can show you if I click on row here, you can see, well, it doesn't change very, very much, but it looks very much like a text, right? It's literally a piece of text that has a special format that look very, very similar to an object, which is a type of data in JavaScript. And actually JSON, JSON, does mean JavaScript object notation. Literally a piece of text that looks like a JavaScript object. The cool thing with this, this file structure, this piece of text, this kind of like special syntax of text, is that every single language, being JavaScript, Python, Ruby, any other language, can understand them, and any website can like read it and get data out of it. By the way, you can see that I have those row and parse buttons here on the top right side of my screen, which is showing this JSON file in a very much more beautiful way for us human beings, right? When I click on parsed, this is a Chrome extension that I sent you on Slack that is called JSON formatter. JSON formatter here that I have installed on my Chrome. So there's also JSON viewer, which is doing the same. A lot of other Chrome extensions that are doing the same job. I really encourage you to download this kind of Chrome extension if you are to work in the API world. It really helps to see, to be able to read what's going on in there. So this is kind of my own rule of thumb kind of definition of APIs. On the web, there are websites, there are web pages that are done for human beings to enjoy, the one that we know very well. There are other websites, other web pages that are done for computers to enjoy, for programs, for websites to enjoy, to get data out of them. And these are the APIs. And the website commit top that I show you here is leveraging the power of the GitHub API, so the power of this JSON information here, in order to show us a very nice and always up-to-date list of all the contributors of GitHub, like of the ranking of the contributors of GitHub in Japan. All right, so this is like what APIs are. And so to make you understand a little bit like how we approach API and like what's how we are working with APIs, how commits to the top this website is actually using an API in order to show like the name and the ranking of all the GitHub contributors. I will want to get back to the slides and use a metaphor that is like working very, very well with this word of APIs. So remember, APIs are kind of like very special websites, I would say, right? That are here for other websites or programs to get some data and to use this data in order to create content, to create interesting applications, and so on and so forth. So in order to talk more into APIs and the fact that APIs are providing us with some data, I would like to use a metaphor, the metaphor of the restaurant. Restaurant, which is providing you with what exactly? What does the restaurant provide you with? Data. You are eating data at the restaurant? Food, right? Yeah, meals, obviously. Here you go. Tell me, we're not eating at the same restaurants.
I'm living in the future.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, yeah, we could argue that food is actually like a piece of information, but let's not go too much into that. All right, so restaurants are here to provide us with food, but so question for you, how do you get food from, like when you're in a restaurant, you're at the table, right? How do you get food like to your table? How does that work? You're ordering, right? You're ordering to whom? Are you going to the kitchen? No, you're ordering to a waiter, right? You're absolutely right. You're asking the waiter to give you some, to get you some food like at your table, basically. You're never ever looking at the kitchen, right? So how do you figure out what food you want to ask to the waiter? The menu, right? You're looking at the menu. So in a restaurant, when you want some food, you're ordering the waiter. So you check in the menu first, you're ordering the waiter goes to the kitchen, gets your food, and bring back your food to your place, right? The thing is that in the API words, it's exactly the same thing that is happening. First of all, when you want to get data and not food this time of an API, from an API, you need to look at the menu. The menu in an API is the documentation, right? The documentation will tell you how to, we can see the chat window and zoom to on the screen. Is there a way to remove? Yep, sorry, my bad. Here we go. I was checking the answer of everyone at the same time. Here we go. So you're checking the menu, which is in API word, the documentation, right? You know what data you want to get. You saw it in the documentation. You're going to ask it to the waiter. And the waiter here is the API. It is the API. The API will go into the application, like github.com, basically, search for the list of contributors that we saw before that you want to get, and we'll give you back the data from the application so that you can use it on your website. So this is like the thing that is happening on an API. So two very important things in the API. First thing is that you never ever see what is inside GitHub. You never ever see what is inside the kitchen. You're asking the API to get you the right data from GitHub, but you never ever see all the data that is inside GitHub. And that's quite cool. It's pretty nice because you don't need to care about, like, you know, all the data that you don't want to see from GitHub. You don't need to search for the data that you're interested in inside GitHub. The API is doing it for you. It is a waiter, right? The other important thing and the other interesting thing is that you're very clear about how to get the data because you have the menu, because you have the documentation. So everything about the API, everything about any API that you see on the web is explained at one place and one only place, which is the API documentation. Right? So if we summarize a little bit, whenever you have a new website, you want in this website to have some data coming from somewhere else in the web, from an API. For example, you want some data about GitHub, but you know, it could be some data about the weather, and you would connect to a weather API. It could be data about the current stocks, and you would connect to I don't know, Robinhood API, for example, or like a stock management application API. Well, the first thing that you would want to do is to go to this API documentation, see how you access like to the data that you're interested in, and do a call, ask this API to give you the right data, just like we did in here. Have the right URL, get the right data, and use the data the way you want to use it on your website, just like they did in commits.top. All right, that's a lot of theory. Obviously, very, very soon, we're gonna go into a little bit more practice. But before we enter into practice and before I show you how to actually get data from an API, I would like us to talk about a bit of vocabulary first. And I would like us to see a bunch of examples of APIs that you can see on the web. So again, websites that are providing interesting data for your website, for your applications to use it and to make something interesting out of it. So first thing you need to know is that API means application programming interface, and that makes a lot of sense. The application is the kitchen. It's GitHub, where the data is. The interface is the waiter, right? It's the API that is getting the data for you. The programming is what you will do with this data on your website, on your application, to build something interesting with this data, basically. This is what APIs are. So obviously, APIs are not things that like normal user on the web are really using. It's what developers are using, people that are creating websites, people that are creating applications. And like it's quite hidden for normal users. Now, APIs are everywhere, and they are underneath a bunch of services that we are using every day. So we're going to see some of these services, and we're going to actually use some of these services with this new acquired knowledge of APIs that will make us understand actually what is going on behind the scene. All right, told you about some vocabulary. Let's talk about it right now. Here we go. So what we say when we talk about an API, remember API is something that is providing us with some data, right? And we use this data for our websites. That's really the idea here. Well, we usually say that an API exposes a service, which is like basically exposing some data. And we are saying that the developers are writing programs or websites which are consuming this data. So expose and consume, these are the two big keywords. And we're going to use them into a bunch of API examples that I have in the next slides in here. The first example is a bit of a, I think it's an interesting one because it's not an example from the web, just to show you that this idea of API is not something that is just on the web. It's the example of the wall socket. So I'm gonna reopen the chat just for me to see your answers very quick. About this WebSocket example here, what is the service that is exposed by this API, if you consider a wall socket as an API? What are we exposing? Electricity, you're absolutely right. And what is consuming this service? Any appliance. That's absolutely right. And electronics. You're totally right. So the idea here is to say that like this interface between machines and machines, applications, this API interface can be really like seen not just in the internet world, but in many like use cases around us. You have a computer in front of you, right? This computer has a keyboard, and the keyboard, whenever you touch one of its keys, is basically sending a message back and forth to your computer saying what key you were actually touching. You all know that you can like manage to change, like to basically tell the computer, hey, this key is not a Q, it's actually a Z or something like that. The reason why you can do that and the reason why your computer understands your keyboard is because there is an API in between. There is an API that is connecting your computer and whatever key you're pressing on the keyboard. And this also can be considered as an API. So obviously, the one that we are interested in our case are web APIs, APIs that we can find on the web. And I have a bunch of examples to share with you today about these APIs. So for each of the example, I will want to ask you every time like what the API exposes, who is consuming basically the service that the API exposes. And we're going to talk a little bit as well about the business plan of each of these APIs. Before we start, there's also like something I sent you on Slack. I would like to like direct your attention to programmableweb.com and 3 other websites that I sent you on Slack that are kind of like repositories of all the APIs that you can find on the web. So from now on, if you aim to use an API or to ask your developer team to use an API on a project that you have, I do think that those 3 links I sent you are a very good a place to start when it's about like searching for the right API for your project. That being said, let's jump into examples. The first example that I would like to talk about are a bunch of geo APIs, starting with Google Maps. So Google Maps, you all know Google Maps, the website, right? You're using it just like me to know where to go when you're like lost somewhere in Tokyo. Google Maps also have an API that it is providing to us. So what do you expect? What do you imagine that Google Maps API is providing to the world? What is it exposing? Do you have an idea? Geolocation. Restaurants. Yeah, give me more. Maps. I love it. I love it. Maps, restaurant, geolocation. I think these 3 are very good. Too many things. Absolutely. So who is consuming all of this? Give me a one example of someone that is consuming that. Uber. I love it. Yes. Airbnb. I think I have Airbnb here. Yeah, here you go. Right? Airbnb, all these websites that have Google's Maps, a Google Maps map on their website, right? So all these websites are consuming the API of Google. And like every single time you see a map on a website, obviously it's not Airbnb that's like, manufactured their map on the website. No. They're not bothering with that. They are actually asking Google to do that, right? So there's a bunch of things, very, very interesting things we can tell about this map that we have on Airbnb. So first of all, as you can see, it's not exactly the same map as what you see on Google Maps, right? It looks like Google Maps, but there are some markers with like prices on them. So what you need to know, and what is very important with APIs, is that it's not just providing a like standard service for everyone. It's also like providing some customized services. It's providing a bunch of ways for you to customize and like have the exact map, for example, for Google Maps that you're interested in, right? The other thing that we can that is very important and very interesting in the case of Airbnb to highlight is that Airbnb, when they started, was a startup, right? Obviously, they didn't have a lot of money, and they skyrocketed with their website that everyone really liked. Now, when they started, they already had a Google Maps like map on their website. Could you imagine, first of all, Airbnb without this map? I don't think they would have like done anything without the map. You really, really want to know where all the like apartments are located whenever you search for them. Airbnb would not have like been the success that they are if they didn't have the map. On the other hand, can you imagine that they would have built this map by themselves? And here the answer is also no, right? Like this map service here is a like, I don't know, like probably $100,000 or maybe $1 million service that we have here. Building the map, maintaining it, like having every part of the earth that is like well displayed and so on and so forth. That's an enormous service that no startup can actually like build from scratch. So really, like what is interesting with Google Maps here is that it's a service for companies, but it's also a service that made Airbnb and maybe Uber actually possible. So they are not just like providing a service, they are also making like these kind of startups possible. They are really a big like a big engine of actually creativity and like new businesses on the internet. APIs are extremely important. It's because we have API that we have Airbnb and Uber. Really, keep that in mind. It's very important. Last thing I would like to share with you about Google Maps is their pricing and their basically their business model. So Google Maps up to 2000. So they started in 2005 and they were free up to 2018, right? So they were actually I don't think they were like earning much money at that time. They were really using this service to for as many websites as possible to use their map service, and they started to like make people pay by requests in 2018. So every website that had a Google Maps on their website started to have to pay for every user that was looking at this map. To me, it's a very interesting like business model. They basically made like a lot of websites feeling like really, they kind of locked a lot of websites on their technology and decided one day to turn it into a paid technology, which probably a lot of people actually paid for. So interesting business model here. Us at Wagon, we are now using a different service, which is called Mapbox, a service that we are going to use today together in order to show an example of how to use an API, right? We're going to talk about it in 1 second. Another business model that they have is that if you actually go for like Airbnb or even like Google Maps, if you look at a map of Paris, there are some restaurants that are popping up much more than the others. This restaurant would have probably paid for it, right? In this map that you have here, we don't see anything, but I'm pretty sure that if I click on the link in there, all right, look at that. What is this thing? The Champs-Élysées, the Musée d'Orsay. I have some things popping up. I guess Airbnb is paying for like not to have like too many like, you know, advertised places to pop up on their map. But on some other websites, you could see like advertising from Google Maps directly on the map of the website, and they get money out of the people that want to be placed on the map. So another business model that they have. Obviously, Google Maps is providing a documentation. We said that the documentation was really the menu of the API. It is the first and only place you want to go every time you want to use an API. So we're going to see that together. We're going to jump into Mapbox API and Mapbox documentation, which is very similar to Google Maps. And you'll see how we are like actually reading this very kind of hard to read thing that is a documentation. Okay, oh, this is a Mapbox. I told you about it. So really, it's just like Google Maps, but it's free so far. It's connected to, so the map service is actually the OpenStreetMap service, which is a open source map service that everyone can use on the web so far for free. Okay, so one of you told me about geocoding. What is geocoding actually? Same with translation API for the pricing. Rakuten Travel, MyMizu, absolutely, yeah. MyMizu is definitely using, again, MyMizu business created thanks to Google Maps or Mapbox and what they are using right now. So geocoding, what is it? Can you give me a definition of geocoding? Because geocoding, you write, is a part of Google Maps and Mapbox API. Latitude and longitude, yes, that's right. But more precisely than that, and its address, oh yes, you got it, you're very close. A geocoding service is a service, as you can see on the bottom of the page here. I'm gonna click on it to open it in there. All right, geocoding API. See, we are inside the docs, Mapbox, the documentation of Mapbox. I'm clicking on geocoding API and I have a definition of what the geocoding API is. But geocoding, and especially forward geocoding, is a service that is taking an address and that is turning it into coordinates, longitude and latitude. Question for you, why do we need that? Oh yeah. Sartak said it well, point on the map. Absolutely. Remember, coming back to Airbnb or Uber, no, let's say Airbnb. On Airbnb, you have the owner of apartments that are like listing their apartments on Airbnb, right? What they are listing is not the coordinates, absolutely not. They have no idea what it is. They are listing an address. When they do that, Airbnb, before being able to put the apartment on the map just like this, needs to have the coordinates of this apartment so that they can tell to Google Maps, hey, put a marker on these coordinates here. This is the apartment of our like Palais Bourbon chambre privée, right? So geocoding is a part of map like geo APIs, which is in between like the address and like the marker on the map, basically. Takes an address and it turns it into coordinates. Very, very important service. So Mapbox has a geocoding service, and this is the one that we're going to use to actually demo a little bit how to use and how to read an API documentation. So to do so, I have one or two steps to go with. I'm going to close this one, read to start from the beginning. I'm gonna like click on this mapbox.com sign up. All right. So the good thing is that I'm already signed up. I did it before the workshop so that you don't have to see me signing up. And when you signed up, they are sending you to this Mapbox account page. So this account page is kind of a dashboard. You see that the documentation is in there, and we really, really want to go for the documentation as soon as possible. But before that, there is a section that is extremely important and interesting for us to see. It's the access token. What you need to know is that every single time you access to an API, you need to tell this API, hey, I am Yann, for example. I am Yann Klein. This is me accessing to your API and getting data from your API. To do so, we need an access token. And here you can see that Mapbox API is providing me with an access token, which represents me, basically. So question for you, why do we need access tokens? Why do we need an API key like that? Why does an API need to know that it's me? Security, very good point. No hacker to charge you. It's perfect. Exactly what it is. Two big reasons, security and no hacker first. Right? If I were to do 1 billion queries to this API, the service would be down, really, would be saturated and down. They don't want one user to be able to do that. So they are making sure that if they receive 1 million queries, they are coming from 1 million different people. So they want to know who is sending those queries, right? The second reason for API that are not free that they want to charge you every time you're using their service, basically. So they want to know who you are and they want to charge you, obviously. So an access token is very important, and that's the first thing that you want to keep and like to generate whenever you're using an API. If they have one, most of them have one, create a token. Second thing will be then to go for the documentation. For this first like small live code of today, what I will want to do is I have an address. I have Tokyo Tower as an address that I would want to like figure out what's like that I want to figure out the coordinates, basically. So my goal for this this small challenge, this small example here, would be to go through the documentation of the API and figure out a way to give the API the address Tokyo Tower and get the longitude and latitude of Tokyo Tower from this API. Let's go for it. Let's give it a try. So I'm in the documentation here. I could literally search for what I'm searching for, which is geolocation, right? Location, and press enter. I can also, oh, look at that. There you go. Geolocation. Do they have some things about it? Mapsearch.js. Surprisingly not like look at the user. It's not really what I want to have here. Surprisingly, it's not giving me the best answer in terms of search. But anyway, I want to be like a bit, I want to play a bit with the documentation and see what is inside. So we're gonna scroll down and see what they are providing us. So they are providing us with maps. Very good. Maps with JavaScript, right? Custom map and so on and so forth. That's interesting, but not for today. Maps API is definitely what we want to go for. So what do we have in the Maps API? Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of things about maps, but nothing about geolocation. So maybe it's not here. Maybe this is, okay, this is just about like all the maps. Very good. Let's continue. Okay, they have a navigation section. We don't care too much about navigation, so it's probably not what we're looking for. And they have a search. Okay, search is better. Turn coordinates into addresses or address into coordinates. That's exactly what I want. Perfect. I want the API out of it. Okay, search API, very well. And I have geocoding API and Japan search API. So Disclaimer, I tried Japan Search API. It's in beta and it's not there yet, to be honest. So we're just gonna ignore it. Just keep it in mind. It's here, but we're gonna ignore it. And we're gonna go for geocoding API, which is exactly what I want to do here. Nice. So I am on the right page of the documentation. Now it's time for me to find the keywords of what to search to actually use this API. So you can see that there's a bit of explanation. They're telling me, hey, the geocoding API does two things: forward geocoding and reverse geocoding. So the forward geocoding takes an address and gives you the coordinates. The reverse geocoding takes the coordinates and return an address. Okay, that kind of makes a lot of sense. So now that I'm very clear about what these two parts of the API are doing, geocoding and reverse geocoding, actually it's here, forward and reverse geocoding. What I will want to search is a URL. An API, to access an API, we need a URL, and it's really what I will want to search as much as possible in the documentation, a URL. So I'm going to go for forward geocoding because it's exactly what I want, right? And I'm going to search for a URL. Oh, got one. Amazing. So what is going on here? There's a lot of information. Let's try to understand what is going on. So we have this URL to access the API. They are telling us that it is accessing this API is done through a GET request. So what is this about? What you need to know is that on the internet, when you're accessing any website, like thewagon.com, for example, you're doing what we call an HTTP request, right? Or when we were accessing the API page in here, we were doing an HTTP request, which is like a request to a website. We talked about it on Tuesday with a certain URL. Every single time you're doing that on Chrome, it is a GET request. A GET request is a request to a server, to the thewagon.com server, for example, for this server to provide you with some data, to give you some data, for you to read, to be able to read this data. Okay, every time you're writing something in Chrome here, you're doing a GET request and you're getting back some page, some data for you to read. Now, these are GET requests, and they are not the only requests that you can do on the internet. There is the opposite request, and to show it to showcase one example of this request, I'm going to go for the contact us page of thewagon.com. On the contact us page, if I go for, I can write some message to Tokyo, to the Tokyo bootcamp of Wagon. First name Yann, last name Klein. That's my address in here. Subject, hey, from the JPC API workshop. Just saying hi and testing a post request by Sylvain. Okay, so here you can see that I'm writing a bunch of information, right? I'm accepting the terms and I'm sending the message. When I send the message this time, I am not getting new data, right? I'm not getting data. I'm actually sending data to the thewagon.com website, to the thewagon.com server, so that Sylvain can see it when he connects to thewagon.com. I'm sending some data. I'm not doing a GET request, which is reading data from thewagon.com. Sending data, posting data is a post request, right? These are the two big requests that we are doing on the internet, GET request and post request. The important thing that you need to remember is that a GET request is something you can do very easily just by writing a URL on Chrome and pressing enter. Whereas a post request just like the one we did with this message sent, is taking a little bit more hardship. It needs basically a form, just like this one, to be actually for us to send some data to a certain website. All right, here we're kind of lucky. It's a GET request. We have a URL. So technically what we could do is take this URL and, just copy pasting it inside Chrome, press enter, and it should show us like the JSON file, the data that this URL is linking us to. Right, we're gonna do that in 1 second, but before that, we need to see a little bit what is inside this URL. As you can see, like the URL that they're providing us is like a normal URL, but there are 2 parts here that are like corresponding basically to dynamic parts, to parts that we need to change. And below it, they are telling us a little bit how, like, what is the value that we need to put in the endpoint and the search text, right, in here, in order to access to the right, like to have the right URL to get the right data. So one thing we can do is read through it. Like instead of the endpoint, you can use mapbox.places or mapbox.places permanent. The difference is explained in there. Instead of the search text, you would need the feature you're trying to look up and blah, 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 and so on and so forth, like coffee shop or whatever you want. We could definitely go for like, try it from this documentation. Now, usually when you're in a documentation, if you scroll down a little bit more, they are always, most of the time, trying to make it more understandable by giving you some examples. And here, you can see that we have a nice example of our forward geocoding. It's a bunch of code. It's something, a lot of things that we don't really understand, which we don't get. But what we can see and understand here is that there is a URL. It's a long URL, right, up to here. This URL like has what exactly inside api.mapbox/geocoding v5 mapbox places. That's what we saw just before, right? In the URL example. There is a Los Angeles here, which is probably the address that we are searching for, .json question mark. And then we have access token equal PKEI and so on and so forth. And this is actually my access token that Mapbox is very nice to like use directly and copy paste it in the documentation so that we can try this URL right away. So you can see that every single time we are accessing the API Mapbox, we need an access token. All right. So if I copy paste that in on Chrome to test this this API, this is what I get: a JSON, right, with text Los Angeles, place name Los Angeles, California, United States, and the center here that is giving me the longitude and latitude of Los Angeles. So just to prove you that like access token is extremely important, if I remove the access token of the URL, they will tell me, hey, not authorized, no token. So we do need the access token. Furthermore, we saw that in the URL they were providing, they had Los Angeles, right? We want to search for Tokyo Tower. So I will come back to my URL, remove Los Angeles, and write Tokyo Tower instead. By the way, in a URL, it's okay to have a space. The space will be translated automatically by your browser into %20, which is what you saw in their example. So see, I have now %20 whenever I press enter, and I get a new JSON. If I jump on it, which is in Shibakoen 428, category gift novelty shop, gift shop, interesting. Text Tokyo Tower official shop galaxy, and we get here the longitude and latitude of this shop, of this Tokyo Tower, basically. So here we figured out how to access the right URL that is giving us the right data for Tokyo Tower through our Mapbox API. So when you access an API, it's really like the steps that you want to go for. Go for the documentation first. In the documentation, search for the section or the part of the documentation you're interested in. When you're in there, search for the URL. Usually they give you a lot of explanations about it. They also give you examples. I always jump on the examples to make sure to test them out right away. If these URLs and this if these URLs are part of a GET request, I can try and use it directly inside Chrome just like that. All right. So this is how to get like the data from an API in general. This is a kind of like work that you want to do or you want your developer team to do every time they are accessing an API. So in your case, in the case of like none or less developers, when you want to talk to developers, I think one of the most important thing is not necessarily like, the final URL here. The important thing is really to be able to know like if you want to know what an API is capable of, like jumping into the documentation, see everything that you can do, try to figure out like what data you need, see some examples, you can try them by yourself and so on and so forth. So here the idea is that I think that for like higher level people that are working with developer, the big skill to have is to be able to read the documentation and to understand what you can do with this API. Okay, I'm gonna like finish this first part of tonight's workshop with one or two more examples, and then we're gonna have a small break before jumping into the second topic of tonight. So my other example is Twilio. Twilio is a very interesting website, a very interesting company because they don't have any other business than providing an API. Like they don't have a map like Google Maps, or like they don't have a website that people are using out of like using their actual API. And they are a SMS sending specialist. So what they are literally doing as a job is that if you're registered to the service and give them a phone number with a message, they are going to send this message to whoever this phone number is belonging to, right? So what are they exposing here as a service? Well, basically SMS messaging, right? Now, who is consuming these SMS messages? Do you have an idea of what companies are like need to send SMSs to their users? Uber as well, right? Yamato, OTP, I'm not sure what OTP is again. All companies, that's right, insurance companies and so on and so forth. Now, I mean, you and I can send SMSs, right? So, oh yeah, okay. One-time passwords. Yeah, so you and I send SMSs. Like I can create a website without Twilio that is sending an SMS. Really, it's very easy. Why is Twilio so important? Like why are they providing this service? Like, well, the answer is that, have you ever tried to send, obviously, mass scale? Here you go, automation. That's right, that's right. And one more thing as well here, B2C management. So they have also like a bunch of features connected to this SMS. One thing also is that the companies that are using Twilio, and I think I have a list of them, Airbnb, TransferWise, Uber, just like very big companies, they are selling things all over the world, really. And they are like, they need to send SMSs to AU phone, SoftBank phones, Docomo phones, but they also need to send like people like SMS to Verizon people in the US and all the other Sprint and so on and so forth. Everything that is very, very complex for a company. Uber doesn't care about sending SMSs, right? They don't care about it. They leave it to Twilio. They leave it to their waiter. The waiter does the job. They don't care. They care about eating the food, right? Not about like sending the SMSs. So this is the idea of Twilio. And again, they are a very, very like successful company, as you can see here. It's an old stock, but they are still like growing and growing. And their business is just providing an API. It's just sending SMSs, really. Well, they have a bit more, but like the core business is SMSs. Yeah, and they're easy to implement, really. They are providing a documentation with like very easy way in Ruby, or even in Node is JavaScript, that you can use on your computer, on your website, sorry, to send an SMS. So a very nice service, easy to use, really. Another API I wanted to showcase was YouTube. You all know YouTube as a website, right? But you all know as well that in many, many websites, you have YouTube videos going on. And these videos are coming from the YouTube API. So the YouTube API is exposing videos for this website, consumed by so many websites that are showcasing YouTube videos, right? And their model, because this is totally free to put YouTube videos on your website, the model is basically the ads that are showing up in the videos whenever you check, you watch a YouTube video on another website. And I can tell you, and you know, that there's more and more of them. This is my last example, I think, which is an interesting one, Stripe. Stripe is an API, again, that is providing a way for other websites to pay, to make their clients pay them. So before, back in the days, it was so hard to pay on the internet, right? And it was very dangerous as well. Like people didn't want to pay on the internet. They were scared of all the scams that you could find. Then PayPal came, PayPal, which is an API already, that provided a system for everyone to have secured like payments. And nowadays we're using more and more Stripe, which is this one API that is providing every like form where you can put your credit card number and so on and so forth that you find on the internet. So again here, if you were a startup like willing to make your clients pay for your service, it would be super hard for you to build it directly, like from scratch on your website. First reason why it would be hard, it would not be because like it's hard to, like technically hard. It would be hard because no bank would accept you. No bank would be like crazy enough to accept a like manually built like service that is connecting with them and asking their clients to give money to you, right? So Stripe is extremely important for so many companies that need to handle in an easy way payments on their websites. Another very good example, and they are very, very, very successful as well. So to sum up on APIs, they are here to inspire us new ideas, right? New website that we can build with like so many data that we can find on the internet. They are here to like change the entrepreneurial work landscape, like APIs where the reason why Airbnb, Uber, all these startups actually could start up, really. They are the big reason why the internet is what we know as of now. And they even create ecosystems. You know, when you use you use your phone, you're using the App Store, right? In China, everyone is using WeChat mini apps. All these like app stores, WeChat app stores, and so on and so forth. All of these are actually APIs that small application developers are using in order to share their small application to the great world of mobile phone users. So really, APIs are also providing this ecosystem that makes like small developers connect to the world through App Store, through Google Play, and so on and so forth. APIs are the engine of the internet as we know it. And that's a big message I wanted to share with you before we take a small break before talking about webhooks. Maybe before the break, I'll check the chat very quick and make sure that you don't have any questions. So far, it was a lot of like theory, but also I want to make sure that everything is clear enough. So don't hesitate to ask me any question. The customer service of Stripe is excellent. It's excellent. Nice. Isn't it a problem to make API public? As long as you have the right access token and the right access like restriction on your API, it is okay. How to make sense of documentation when it is hard to understand? Dear Christo, this question is probably like the most important question of the web. So my rule of thumb is following this this step-by-step that I told you about. Jump into the documentation, try to make sure that I'm on the right page, so on the right like on the right part of the API for what geocoding, and then searching for the URL. Before that, having the access token actually. Knowing how to use the access token. Here we were very lucky really, because in the examples they were giving us like how to pass the access token, but it's not always after an equal and an access token equal and the access token. It's not always like that. This is very particular to Mapbox API. So it's also something that you will want to search in the API, like how to authenticate, how to pass the access token to your URL. It's a whole like yeah, it's a whole science really, and not all documentation are written equally. You're absolutely right. And furthermore, they're all different, and they're all like and there's no other place on the web where you can know how to use Mapbox API than other place than the documentation itself, unfortunately. This is a unique source of truth. Do you have an API to search a right API for you? I don't, but I have those 3 websites that I sent you on Slack. These are the ones I use every single time I need an API. Chris, praise that the company that votes the documentation is good. Yes. Have you heard of Rapid API? I did, and I love it. So it's one of the links I sent you on Slack. Rapid API is we kind of well, anyway, kind of using the break here, but I'm fine with it really. Rakuten Rapid API. Is it Rapid API? Let's give it a try. Rakuten Rapid API. So it's not the like Rakuten API that are provided on Rakuten API that is provided on Rapid API, right? It's okay. Oh, let's see that. Yeah, you're right. It's the same. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's interesting. Wait. Is it correct? No, wait. What? All right, let's see who are the benefactor of Rapid API here. About us. Okay. They have a bunch of investors, but I don't see Rakuten here. Maybe it's a different, it's two different services. Well, the one I use a lot is Rapid API, just to showcase it a little bit. So using API documentation is hard. You got it, right? I think you understand it now. The good thing with Rapid API is that it makes the use of API easier, right? So the Facebook API, for example, is really hard to use, right? Now, on Rapid API, there are kind of like middlemen people that have created an API that is getting the data of the Facebook API. So it's like an API before the API. The good thing is that accessing the Facebook API is hard, really hard. Now, accessing their API is easier. So they do the hard job, and we just get the data from the hard job they did. And as you can see on the Rapid API on the right side, you have an example of code for any single language already built for you that you just can copy and paste for you to use. With like a very ergonomic and easy to use interface here. You can test the endpoint as well. But of course, because we're using the middleman, do you know what the middleman usually does? It makes you register first, right? Wait for it. I think it's GitHub. And obviously, the middleman makes you pay, right? So commission, the basic one is for what? This subscription is for 10 pages per month. So 10 pages of data from Facebook per month, it's $0. That's fine. But if you want to go for a more professional version of this middleman, you'll have to pay this, and so on and so forth. I love Rapid API for testing APIs and see what we can get from it. It's most of the time like free for the basic plan. But as you can see, obviously, it's more expensive than doing the hard work and getting through the real API documentation. But much more easy, especially for Facebook or this API that are really, really hard to use.
Sorry, I have a question. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed half of this conversation, but is this like Rapid API like a platform to, I guess, create an API and upload and sell it to others?
Yeah, you're right. It's a marketplace of APIs.
Mm-hmm.
So every single API you can see here is built by like someone, like some small companies or some individual person that are providing like the URL, the endpoints to a certain more complex to access API, basically.
I see. Just curious, because you just mentioned like this one's not probably ideal because of the costing reasons, right? Are there any other marketplace out there that actually works better?
Honestly, I think Rapid API as a marketplace is the better one. Then if Rapid API is too expensive, you will want probably to go for the actual API. So to go for Google and get access to their API. But again, it's more complicated to go for. Now, on Rapid API, if you write Google, it's a marketplace, right? So you have a lot of different possibilities and options depending on what you want and how much you want to pay. So I think it's a good place to check like what you can actually do.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep. And as you can see, like on this Google search here, for example, is built by Marceline Hove 2. She's a nice person here that built 2 APIs for us to use whenever we want. So it's really a marketplace. All right, let's take a 4 minutes, 5 minutes break. Something like this. It's 8:18. Let's meet again at like 8:23, something like that. And we're gonna do the last part of this workshop. All right. Are you ready for the part number 2 of this workshop? I think, do we have hope we have everyone.
Maybe if you're here, can you give us a reaction in the chat?
Yeah. I see some, oh yeah, thumbs up, hearts, claps, ready. All right, I think there's a bunch of reactions here. 4, 5, yeah.
Can I take 2 minutes to just share like an experience about API?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so actually I wanted to tell people that sometimes as a product manager, your whole entire responsibility could be around API integrations. And so that's why the stuff that Jan said about being able to read the documentation and understanding, what kind of functionalities can be used is a really great skill to have, really great technical skill to have as a product manager as well. So yeah, I think like that's just something to keep in mind. Just for example, in my case, last year, I was asked to help integrate Google Translate API into Rakuten Travel because we have so many guest reviews that need to be translated, in different languages. And you have to kind of do the budgeting for that, but you also have to understand what kind of features Google Translate provides you, how you can use them, how you can, get the cheapest plan possible. That like all that stuff also comes in. So that's just an example, but yeah, so definitely explore APIs. It's, as I said, it's the most biggest 3-letter word you will hear as a product manager all the time. So yeah, that was just something I wanted to share as well.
That's a really good share. I got the same feedback from a lot of people that are working not at developer level but higher as well, or like, I mean, not higher but like together with developers, like next to developers. And indeed, it's like the understanding of what's going on and what are the possibilities. And like sometimes, sometimes the developers are not your developers, they are like partner developers, and they are telling you that it's no, it's not possible. So sometimes it's a way to cut the bullshit. And
yeah, exactly. I think that I was telling one group earlier today that if you can speak technical language, you'll gain a lot of respect from your engineering team, and you will also be able to justify things that you want to do or features that you want to build. And sometimes you may be having like an outsourced development, and many times people will try to say, oh, this is very expensive, this is not possible. But if you can do it yourself, or if you know how to do it, if you have an estimation, or a sense of how easy or hard it could be, you could save a lot of money and earn a lot of respect by doing that. So definitely that's why technical skills as a product manager are very, very important.
Totally agree with that. Don't let the dev have all the power.
Yeah.
All right. Talking about technical skills, I would like to share two more things today with you. Number one is the concept of webhook, which is the opposite of APIs. So number two is actually sharing you a tool or a certain, well, mostly one tool, but like a pipeline of tools that you will be able to use. It's to like basically use API and use the power of API in your everyday work life. So it's less related to the way of understanding the documentation and like talking with developers than actually like having some like professional life hacks through APIs that will help you like make your work maybe more efficient. But well, instead of like talking about it, I'm gonna like show it to you. That will be the second part of this last workshop part. But before, let's talk about webhooks. So the idea of webhooks is again the opposite of APIs. So before I go for, I have another metaphor for that. But before we go for metaphors, I want to talk to you more about like, thing that makes sense for all of us. So take the example of Gmail. Remember that an API, so when you're on a website where you can see all your mails, let's say that it's connected to the Gmail service, you could imagine that there is an API that when you click the button refresh, sends a request to Gmail, right? Like a GET request, we talked about it, right? A GET request to Gmail, asking like, hey, give me a JSON with all the mails. You get back the JSON and it's showing the mails on your website, right? You could imagine to have a website like this, showing you all your Gmail emails, or even like sending, API requests to Gmail, to Yahoo, and all these different provider of emails, and you have them all in one website. That would be a cool website. Problem is, if you have these kind of websites, in order to see new emails, what should you have to do? You would have to click on the refresh button over and over and over and over again and again and again, in order to send messages to Gmail, like show me the new mail, show me the new mail, show me the new mail, in order to see the actual new emails. That doesn't work, right? You're not doing that on the internet. You're not like clicking a button over and over and over, refreshing over and over and over to get new data. The data is coming to you automatically. This data that is coming to you automatically, that you're not doing an API request to get it, are coming from webhooks. So webhooks are this way that makes you not have to ask for some data, but they just make you just wait where you are and you get the data sent to you. In terms of metaphor, the one I have for you is the metaphor of a dinner with your guest at home. So imagine that you are at home, you organize the dinner, and you are expecting the guests to come, right? So the guests are coming at your door, obviously, right? And well, obviously as well, like in the internet world, you are not like opening your door every 5 minutes to check whether there's a guest in front of your door or not, right? What is this very, very advanced system that you have in order to know that there is a guest at your door? A doorbell, absolutely, a doorbell. And the doorbell is the live version of a webhook. A webhook is the doorbell. And a push notification is also a webhook, by the way, under the hood. It's like the same like kind of technology. So a webhook is a doorbell that will make you like not have to check your emails, check your emails all the time, but make you wait in front of your website for the doorbell to ring and for you to, or for your website to understand that a new email has come. So the webhook are using this kind of like Hollywood principle that we talked about sometimes in programming, which is don't call us, we are going to call you. So you're waiting where you are and you're waiting for notification, push notification or messages, alerts to come to you with the data that you're interested in. And it's called a webhook. It's based on an event, right? The doorbell. And when the event happens, you know that you got some new data. A very simple example of this system of webhook is the one below, the kind of pipeline below. Imagine that you are in like a luxury brand company like LVMH, for example. Not sure that they're using MailChimp, but let's say that. And you have an in-house CRM, right? Customer management system in your company. Well, obviously, this system is not like sending messages or sending like checking every single like customer to see if you got some mails from a customer. This service is using this system is using another service, usually a third-party service, just like MailChimp, that is basically like providing subscription, like a mail subscription to people on the internet. And whenever this the people are subscribing to your like service, basically sending a message to your CRM that someone has subscribed to the service. This message sent to the CRM here is done with a webhook. So every time that you are in your professional life or in your like personal life, and you have a system and you get like new emails or new data or like new leads, without you having to refresh the page, without you to have to click on a button, just like coming without you having to do anything, you are connected to a webhook. So technically speaking, what is going on under the hood is that when you configure this webhook here, you're making your CRM machine or like application, sorry, subscribe to a kind of we could call that the mailing list in Mailchimp, or like a notification like notification channel basically, and you're constantly listening to this channel. Mailchimp, when it receives email from the users, is sending them on the channel, and like every email that is in the channel is like sent automatically every once again, every as frequent as possible through the channel, so that your CRM get it without having to do anything. So there is a permanent connection between Mailchimp and your CRM system through a webhook. So this is for the theory, but I would like to make a bit of practice and to try this webhook together with APIs as well. To do so, before we go for some practice, I would like to share with you other services that are actually providing webhooks. Shopify is one of them. Do you all know Shopify? Some of you are probably working with this e-commerce platform, right? Shopify is nice. Yes. Okay. So it's basically a platform that is providing you everything to build in a very simple way an e-commerce website, right? And among other things that they're providing you, they're providing like also a dashboard where you can see like all the customers that bought some stuff on your websites, and like you can manage them. Well, every single new customer, every single new purchase that you can see on Shopify is coming from a webhook, right? That is like listening to all the purchase of a customer on your own website, and that is like sending a doorbell, an event to Shopify saying, hey, a new purchase has been done. Another good example is Stripe. When you're on the other side of Stripe, Stripe is providing your company with a dashboard, again, that is sending you a message every single time that a customer has done a payment on your platform. So these are two typical examples of webhooks here. All right. So coming to one of the most interesting part of this workshop, I think, the prototyping part. It's a part where I will want to showcase with you a no code involved way to leverage APIs and webhook to like sometimes like, you know, do some like hack your company to boost the growth of the company, like boost your own professional performance, or even like your personal performances, and like make your life easier. The idea that I will want to showcase a tool that is called Zapier, that enables us to like leverage the power of APIs and webhook without code through a very big amount of like softwares, going from Slack to Google Maps, Google Mail, to Trello, to Shopify, and so on and so forth. All the applications that you can imagine that we are using all the time on the internet, individually or professionally. So to showcase that, I would want us to build a no-code customized, custom for our company sales CRM. So what is the idea here? The idea is that I will want to create a form to capture like my leads, basically. So you can imagine a website where the leads of my my company leads, the customer that are interested by my company, would write their email and press submit to send me their email. I would like to capture these emails, and every single time that someone is writing his or her email on my website, I would like to have this email with the information about this person showing up on a workshop process tool, a tool where I could like use this, like basically use this email and like send to this person like all the information that they need in order to buy my products in the end. So to do so, I'm going to use a bunch of tools. The first one is Typeform, which is a service on the internet that is providing forms, basically, in order to capture my leads. I'm going to use Trello, that some of you probably might know, which is a nice workflow tool that is enabling you to like build a workflow and manage, like, for example, leads through a CRM pipeline, as you can see in there, right? So leads, contacted, meeting schedule, and so on and so forth. And to connect them all, we will need a middleman in between. We'll need a software or a third party that will like understand that a user or customer have been filling a form, and whenever a form is filled, to send it to Trello as a new card in my leads card. This middleman will be Zapier. And we're going to talk about Zapier very, very quickly. So in order to showcase that, I'm going to go a bit away from the slides, and we're going to do it together in real time, in live in there. I'm going to close a bunch of things that I have so far here, and we're going to start from the beginning. So the start is on Typeform in there. So as you can see, I already, so this is Typeform. I already connected to Typeform with my email. This is my account. And I'm gonna start by creating a new Typeform, a new form on Typeform. I think I'm gonna use a template. No, I'm gonna go from scratch. Let's start from scratch. Very well. Typeform is very, very user-friendly. I don't know if you have used it before or not. And I'm going to try to create the Wagon leads, right? We're going to create the lead generation form for our Wagon bootcamp. Very nice. Hello, what is your name? That's that's what's the first like thing that there's the first view that they're giving me from the form. Sounds pretty nice. The picture is strange, but okay, fair enough. I'm not gonna like play too much with the design. Second question, nice to meet you. How are you doing? Cool, this question is fine. I'm gonna add 1 or 2 more questions here. I want to get their email, that's for sure. So my question will be, can you share your email, for example? Right. I also would like, at the Wagon, we have a bunch of different bootcamps. So I will go for a multi-choice and ask them, what bootcamp are you interested in? And as for the choice, we have data science full-time. We have a data science part-time. We also have web dev full-time. Then I can try to keep the same web dev part-time. Very good. Okay, very nice. So what bootcamp are you interested in? I love it. And as a last thing, Do I need to have a submit screen? I think they are making it for me automatically. That could be fine. That's kind of like sufficient. We can have a look at this form that I just created. So it starts like this. Hello, what's your name? Yann. Very nice. Okay. How do you feel? Terrific. Obviously, my email, you have it. Go for it. And I'm very interested by the web part-time, and I'm submitting the thing. And the type form, the form is submitted, and it works pretty well. Mobile version, desktop version. So as you can see, this service is quite interesting. You can even embed this form into your application. It's very well done. So I'm very happy with the form we created. I'm going to publish it. As you can see, I have a link. If I open the link, I get the email, the form that I can send to my leads, right? So like very professional. I'm gonna write it again just for us to have a bunch of answers coming from this type form. Very well. I'm very interested by the web dev full-time, and I'm submitting it. Perfect. So here they have this created type form thingy. I think you can get rid of it if you pay a bit to type form. Obviously, this is a free version. You can so you can share your form, as you can see in here, right? In different, you can embed it into a web page as well if you wish to. You could do it in the website that you've been building, for example, right, on Tuesday, and so on and so forth. You also have a results page where you can see all the response. So if you upgrade, you have even more, but like here, at least you can see like a list of all the response with the one response that I sent very recently. Now that's cool, but what we want is to actually use a workflow manager to see all this response and like use this response to like have our sales team like sending emails to the people that sent us an email and like process them and make sure that at the end they end up being students of the Wagon. To do so, I'm going to go for this workflow manager that we're going to use today, which is Trello. So Trello, again, is a workflow manager that is like free, or it's a freemium. You can obviously upgrade to the premium version, but we're going to use a freemium, and we're going to create a new board that we're going to call the Wagon Leads again, right? I create that. Yeah, I'm loving it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a first column that I will rename, not to do, but like leads inbox, right? It's the column where I expect to have all my leads coming. Then I will have a mail sent. So basically when the leads are coming, the first thing that my sales team needs to do is to send an email to these leads, right? And after this email, let's say that the email is very quick. They get an answer from the leads right away. So sometimes the lead accept to be part of the bootcamp, and sometimes they don't. So we're gonna go for accepted or rejected, or success or failure or something like that, just for us to have like a pipeline here for our lead capture. Very nice. So my goal now, I have those two tools working very well. My goal is that every single time a user like, oops, sorry. I'm gonna come back to my type form. Every single time a user writes like an answer in the form here, I want to have a card showing up in the leads inbox in here with the user's email and some important information about this user, this customer, that he or she wrote basically in the form. To do so, again, in between those two tools, I need a third tool, which is Zapier. Zapier is this one middleman that we connect Trello and Typeform to pass information from one to the other using APIs and webhook. And it's really, really, really powerful. First reason why it's powerful is that if I see here, I can, it's very easy to use, create your own workflow. So I want to connect Typeform and Trello. But if I click on search an app, you can see that they have all the apps that you can imagine. I have Twitter, Google Sheets here. Like, what app would you be interesting to connect? Do they have like something about Instagram? I'm not very sure about that. There's no reason. Oh, they do. Instagram, QuickBooks. QuickBooks, you know, this company that is making your how is it called? Account management when you're a small company, like easier, and so on and so forth. Zapier is connecting them all. It's really, really, really powerful. You have here a bunch of workflow that they are like providing. You can see that we are going to use probably the Typeform. Oh, they have Typeform and Slack. Pretty nice, right? We're gonna go for Typeform and Trello, but this is the same idea here. So long story short, let's go for Typeform on one side and Trello on the other side. So they're telling us, hey, when does this happen? Well, that should be happening whenever we have a new entry on the Typeform, whenever a customer writes his or her email on our Typeform. And what should we do? Well, we should add a card. Let's search for that. Add member to card. No. Create a card, maybe. How is it called? Find, create board, create a card. We want to create a card in our leads inbox column. Very nice. All right. And they're done. Is that? Let's try it. We need a bit more configuration, I do believe. Yes, we do. So let's see. In here, I click on here. They're telling us first, hey, you should choose your accounts, your Typeform account. So I need to connect to my Typeform account. I'm gonna connect to a new account. I was using my Gmail for account for every of these services. So I'm gonna accept here. And they recognize that I'm using my Yann Klein Gmail. Perfect. Continue. So in this account, so now I'm connected to this Typeform in there. What they're telling me is that what form do you want to connect this Zapier to? It's my low wagon leads. Very well. Nice. Continue. And here's that already testing the connection. So I can test the trigger. And well, remember we sent a first message in there in the Typeform. We wrote a first message, and Zapier could figure it out. Could find the first message. Hello, what's your name? Yann. Terrific. Yann Klein Gmail, and interested by web dev full time. Very nice. Let's continue. So it works. That's what it means. Do the same job for the create card in Trello. Very nice. So first thing I need to do is to connect my Trello. Let's go for it. Switch accounts. The one I want to use is my Google account. That one. Oh no, 404. That's bad. Taco says account does not exist. Totally exists, my dear Taco. Let me make sure that I'm using my Google account here. Let's see. Gmail. Yeah, looks like it's my Google account. Let's try it again. Connecting to a new account. I am switching accounts. If this doesn't work, it's actually possible that let's see to try. Okay. Yeah. Sounds like it's actually working with my Google account. So I have been using Zapier multiple times. I have accounts all over the place. You'll probably have less trouble that I have. Oh, it's actually this one. I guess it's the right one. Gonna allow it. All right, connected to my accounts. Good, let's continue. On this account, what board are you interested in? Remember that I created the Wagon Leads board on Trello. I'm gonna select it. And I want to create a card, right? And here they're asking me like, on which lists do you want to create a card? I want that the cards I want the card to be created on the leads inbox. And now I can like basically tell what I want to see on the card. So the card will look like that. And I can like add a title and some description to the card. The cool thing with Zapier is that when you like name your card, you can actually use some data that you've been previously getting from Typeform in order to like define like what you want to see in which field in your card. So as a title of my card, I want the name of the person, right? And maybe you know, what bootcamp this person is interested in. Very nice, love it. Now, as a description, I would want to have maybe like a date section where I put the submit date, and then like bootcamp with the bootcamp that this person is interested in. Obviously, the email of the person, right? Okay, that sounds not too bad. Yeah, kind of like it. Good, a good description. You can even put a label, like let's put a red label to say like, wow, that's a nice lead. It's a lead on fire. You need to be careful about this one. It's coming from Typeform. And as you can see, there's a lot of other things that we can change: due date, file attachment, and so on and so forth. A lot of things that Zapier makes us do. But let's don't go too far. We're gonna continue, and we're gonna test the connection that we did between Zapier and Trello. Remember that we got this one form from Typeform that Zapier has like memorized. Well, we're gonna use the same form to send a very first card to Trello. Let's test. Okay, the test has worked, right? And if we look at the Trello now, oh, look at that. We have our first card. Here is the first card. The first card with the date, email, the email, bootcamp, web dev full-time with the name of the person in there. Very nice. Now, last thing to do, publish the Zap. Publish and turn on. Here we go. Very nice. Cool. We have published our first app. Now the connection between Trello in one side and our Typeform on the other side is up and running, and it's just up to us to actually test it. So Trello is waiting for a webhook, right? Nothing is changing on Trello. Trello is we're not refreshing anything on Trello, it's waiting for a webhook. Now, on the Typeform side, we are sending an API call to Zapier. Zapier that will send the message back to Trello through a webhook. So let's give it a try. Gonna take another name. Let's go for Miyuki Tanaka. All right. Miyuki Tanaka feels terrific today. The email is miyuki@tanaka.com. Very nice email. And Miyuki Tanaka is very interested in the data science full-time. Whenever I submit this, remember, API call to Zapier, then Zapier sending the message to Trello, Trello getting it through a webhook, and we have the card showing up on Trello. So I really love this service, again, because it's seamless. Now, like, it's working all the time, and like I can like basically share this email and get my leads coming in and I can like make my saleswomen sending messages for everyone, and then like getting the lead accepted or rejected, and so on and so forth. I love this service because it's so seamless, really, and it works very, very well. I love it as well because connecting Trello and Typeform is definitely not the only thing you can do with Zapier. You can connect so many services together. There is Explore here that is like showing you all the different things that you can do, all the services. Look at that you can connect together. It's infinite. So I love this service. It will probably help you a lot in like making your work or your life more performant. And it is using the full power of APIs and webhooks on the internet. All right, these were the two last things I wanted to share with you. The webhook concept and this amazing tool, Zapier, that is making you like leverage these APIs and webhook power. Do you have any question about all of this? I see a lot of messages already in the chat. Basically, it's a way to automate and share info between different apps. Absolutely. Yeah, you got it. Tamara, absolutely. I think there's a limit to how many apps you can connect, and there's more. And the more you connect between apps, it becomes more complex to set up. You're absolutely right, Jalo. Wow, you're using Zapier with more than 5,000 apps so far. That's pretty impressive.
So Jado works at Zapier.
Oh, here you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, it's an awesome company. That's so funny that you mentioned it as a tool to use.
Because you all are doing a fantastic job, and like I think it's it's a very nice tool for startup to have a no code. You know, like for when startup begin, they're not necessarily developers. Having a no code way to like leverage APIs and webhooks is very, very interesting. You're providing that, and yeah, it's a great job, I think. And as personally, I use the tool on my like everyday life, and it's saved me some time as well. And Tamwa is absolutely right. When you go to the next steps, the next step, like you will want to have like a developers that will actually like take the pattern from Zapier and build those like API calls and hooks like directly with code in your applications, right? But very, very good way to start with Zapier.
So it seems like, how should I say, a lot of companies, a lot of businesses are being formed around things that people don't want to code every time, right? Repeatable things like payments or setting up a map or whatever. So it's a very interesting space to have a business in, if you can automate something that everyone has to do anyway.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Like making you focus on your core business. All right. That was the last words I wanted to share with you tonight. I think that's slide-wise, I'm in the end, really. So yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to share you. Perfect. So from that point on, again, because we do think at the Wagon that like trying yourself is really something that's important, especially for this workshop that is a lot of me talking, really. We have this U-turn section here that will make you like play with the GitHub API, exercise number 2. The geocoding, like the Mapbox API, like train yourself on geocoding, reading the documentation, and so on and so forth, right? Going a bit further away from what I did, I believe. And finally, use Zapier in order to create this custom sales CRM that we've been building together. what I would be super interested and super like happy to see is one or two things really. The first thing would be for you all to have to build a pipeline with Zapier that would help your everyday life or your professional life. That would be one very interesting one. The second thing that it could be very interesting to build as well. As you remember, Typeform, where is it? Like in the share area of Typeform, you can embed the Typeform in a web page. You can do that with a bunch of other services on the web, really in a very simple way, like, you know, copy pasting it inside your HTML code. You could use like copy paste basically a Typeform, like here, get the code, right? So copy paste that in your HTML that you built on Tuesday in order to have a Typeform and connect it through Zapier to whatever tool that you feel like connected to, like for example, sending you a Slack message every time someone is writing like filling a form on your website and so on and so forth. So really like going from this static website that you've been building to something that is leveraging the power of APIs and like making something useful for you.
Yeah, that's so cool because then you don't need to have any backend, right? You can just do everything from no code plus whatever little coding that we have done.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and you can really like get more effective and efficient in many things, many everyday life things that you're doing, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's yeah, I've always heard about Zapier, but I never really saw someone use it in live. So now it makes much more sense. It's much easier than I imagined it would be.
So easy. Jado, you're doing a great job. Sorry, you didn't pay for it, right?
I'm just a recruiter there though, so I hire the engineer to make it. That's all.
I see. Yeah. All right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna stop talking about Zapier. Like people will think that I'm paid by you all. So please hire us all. Yeah.
But yeah, so does anyone have any questions for Yann about even today as well as the workshop on Tuesday? We have like a little bit of time in case we can have some discussions. So
As well as don't hesitate to Slack me. It's my last workshop with you, but I'm still there on Slack, always able to and happy to answer any question. So don't hesitate really.
yeah, but big thank you to Yann and Wagon and Sylvain. It's like the one thing I really felt was really great was that Wagon is actually one of the inspirations of how we came up with the idea of this camp, because they do so many you know, pay it forward kind of workshops, and we just felt like they would be such a great collaboration to have for the technical part of this camp. So super happy to have you, and just was a blast having these workshops. So thank you so much, Yann.
Thank you so much for having us. Really, like I'm doing this job to help people. It's my reason to wake up every morning, and seeing that like other people are doing the same. That's just gold for me. So I'm just really happy to be there.
Yeah, and like we can feel it, like the passion you have when you're teaching, it's really you know, infectious in a good way. So thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
All right, then I think if there is no questions, then we can end today early, and hope everybody had fun. And if you end up making your website, or if you end up making any API automations, please feel free to reach out to Yann for feedback. And yeah, okay, I think that's it. Maybe we'll see each other on the celebration mixer at the end of the month. So looking forward to that. And yeah, good night, everyone. Catch you all later.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye bye.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.